Well, hello and welcome to the Leaders Are Learners Academy. My name is Kevin Wayne Johnson. It is so good that you have checked in and that you are making a valuable investment in your time and in your day. I'd like to welcome you to what I will be introducing to you for the next several minutes on the topic of the DISC method personality indicator. This masterclass will walk you through a great number of strategies and principles. We'll also be providing for you some nuggets, tools, and tips that you can carry with you in your career progression as well as in your leadership journey. I am the founder and CEO of the Johnson Leadership Group, and we focus and specialize in leadership development training for men and women in the workforce at the front line, mid level, and senior level across government, corporations, nonprofits, faith based organizations, as well as academia. We work with colleges and universities as well. And I'm so happy to see you here, and I'm so glad that you are going to be a part of what we're doing. So, in preparation of our time together in this masterclass, I wanted to let you know that attached to each lesson are different graphics that will add value and clarity to the various curriculum and content that I will be sharing during our time together. You are in control of this masterclass because you have the luxury of pausing and stopping and coming back, and you can rewind and go back and take a look at previous slides and take a look at new information as we go through all of this content together. I will ask that you definitely have a pen and a pencil and a highlighter and a notebook or a notepad, whichever you prefer, so that you can take detailed notes. All of the PowerPoint slides that I will be going through is for you. You will be able to not only be able to look at them and process them and have a chance for self reflection, but you'll also have the opportunity to hang on to them in your repository and go back and review anytime you like. There will be 3 videos that's a part of our learning together. There will be a video that will give you more information around the D that stands for dominant. There will be more information for you to review in terms of a video for the I. The I refers to influencing, and then there will be a third video for your perusing when we get to C, and the C is for compliant. And you'll have an opportunity as we go through these personality indicators and these behavioral styles, you'll be able to see very clearly which ones relate to you. We also have a copy of a training flyer. In the event when we're done with this masterclass, you'll have an opportunity to share this with your colleagues and with your friends and with your family in the event that they may want to take the course as well. So we have a training flyer where they can fill out information and get that back to me. You'll see that as you go through your resources tab. We also have for you a number sheet. I'm going to walk you through a very brief exercise at the beginning of our masterclass, and I've also provided copies of that for you as a separate attachment. So you will be able to download that and use that at your convenience. Next to last, in your resources section here in this masterclass, there is a copy of a sample DISC report. It'll give you an idea of what the bottom line comprehensive written report looks like when you have an opportunity to take your DISC assessment. It's a very, very comprehensive, both numerical as well as narrative report that will give you a good overview of exactly what your personality indicator is and what your behavioral style is as well. And then last but not least, also there in your resources section, there's a separate PowerPoint slide that's simply entitled Icebreakers. And this is an opportunity where you can use it in your time and in your leisure as icebreakers as we go through this particular session together. These are all resources that we provide to you as a part of this masterclass because we want you to have the very best experience as you learn about the DISC method and how it can help you grow as a leader, help your team to do better, as well as your organization. So on that note, let's dive right in. Here's a little bit about me. That's me, that gentleman there in the bow tie. And my disc indicator is CSI. I'm a practitioner. I'm a very practical guy. I'm kind of laid back. I'm an introvert, and I look at things practically in terms of getting things done. That's just who I am. And I took my actual personality indicator report back on the 12th of April, 2021. And some of the famous names that you probably recognize that also share my disc indicator are Mother Teresa, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and voila, Albert Einstein. Now, I don't claim to have his intellect and his acumen. I don't claim to be a genius, but it's good to be in the company of Albert Einstein. I also firmly believe that the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Is perhaps America's best orator, or at least in the top five for sure. The gentleman had the gift of being able to speak and to deliver powerful messages. And then, of course, the global impact from Mother Teresa, her compassion, her empathy, and her kindness, and her care for other people. That sort of resonates with who I am. And then, of course, there at the very bottom is my website. In the event you want to learn a little bit about more than just what you'll hear about during this time, but to learn more about me and my company and some of the individuals that work with me, all of our information is there as well. So here's what we're going to cover during this particular masterclass. We want you to learn a lot about yourself. Self-awareness is key to being a good leader, and a good follower, a good person in your family, and a good person in your workplace as well. We want you to discover what makes you unique, what makes you different, what makes you stand out. We want you to be able to discuss the strengths of each of these personality styles, and we'll be looking at four: the D, the I, the S, and the C. We'll be looking at all four of those in depth so that by the time we're done with our time together, you will be able to differentiate between the four. And we also want everyone to be a better communicator by the time that we're done. Now, this is an exercise that we will start out. It has a lot to do with your personality type and your behavioral style. What I would like for you to do is just pause with your pencil or your pen. And by now, you should have downloaded your number sheet in your resources section. And I would like for you to go ahead and start the process of circling the numbers in order, starting with 1. Find 1, circle it, find 2, circle it, find 3, circle it, find 4, circle it. And keep going. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Just take your time. This is not a race per se, but go through this number sheet and one by one, starting with number 1 and just going up, go ahead and circle these numbers and get as many as you possibly can, even while I'm talking. Just go ahead and complete the exercise and see how far you get. You should be maybe up to number 10 by now, 11, 12, 13, 14, wherever you might be. Just keep going, keep moving forward. See how many that you can get in this particular exercise. Now, what we're going to do is give you some additional information that we'll find to be very, very helpful. And this additional information goes as follows. Now we are divided up into 4 different quadrants, starting in the upper left and going over to your upper right, and then down to your lower right and over to your lower left. Now start to circle these numbers: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now see how quickly perhaps you can find these numbers, or how much easier you might be able to find the numbers because it's a little bit less complex now. You can clearly see that there are dedicated numbers that are associated with different quadrants: upper left, upper right, and lower left. And just continue to go in that direction. And now you're finding, because you are now equipped with more information, or perhaps because of the additional visual aid, you can get a little bit further, a little bit faster. And this is just part of the opening exercise here with the disc, understanding the method and the methodology that we're using to help you to better understand and get a flavor for your personality indicator and your behavioral style. See, it's much easier because now you know, and you can see based upon the quadrant that these numbers are in. It makes it so much easier to be able to move out. And I would imagine the second go around, you were able to find them much easier. Now, here's another little sort of an icebreaker, if you would. Take a look at these different patterns. And I'm not asking you necessarily to identify what they might be or what they represent, but sort of think in your mind when you see these patterns that perhaps they could be, and then you sort of fill in the blank, whatever you think they might be. All right. And as we go to the next one, now we can start to pinpoint exactly what these particular patterns represent. And you'll see in the upper left, you have the tiger. You'll see in the upper right, the Dalmatian. And you'll see in the lower right, the giraffe. And then in the lower left, you'll see the zebra. And that's exactly what these patterns represent. Now, the way that you saw them caused your mind to think a certain way. And now that you have a different visual, or a more comprehensive visual, or a more physical visual, you can now pull out exactly what these patterns represent and who they belong to as well. So, as it relates to who you are and how you communicate and how you operate on a day-to-day basis, how you interact with people, how you get along with people, how you communicate with people, has a lot to do with your personality indicator and your behavioral style. I mentioned a little bit earlier in the intro that I am a practitioner. So a practitioner is a CSI. So I'm a very compliant person. I'm steady, but I'm also gifted with the ability to influence. And so that's what makes me a practitioner. And when it's all said and done, after the masterclass, I would definitely encourage you to take the DISC indicator report so that you can receive a very, very comprehensive report. It's over 30 pages that would really, really drill down into the type of person that you are. So you can see here the young lady at the head of the table is very comfortable with leading people. She seems to be very in her space by way of her facial expression. And guess what? She has the attention of those that are under her voice and perhaps even under her leadership. Some of us prefer and we're better at one-on-one interaction in terms of giving direction and giving guidance and also receiving it as well. So some of us do better in a group setting and some of us do better in more of a one-on-one setting. And guess what? There's nothing wrong with either one. It's just you taking the time to get to know which one that you align with and which one works best for you. Now, here's another situation with these guys. They're having a great time. It looks like all three of these guys could perhaps be the life of the party. They're laughing it up. They're using some humor. They're having a great time. There's camaraderie going on. There's partnership. There's collaboration. and they just seem to be having a blast. And this is perfectly okay. And this might be your style. You might have that type of style that likes to just be able to fit in and get along and have these partnerships and these friendships that will help you to get from A to Z and to help everybody involved with getting to their desired outcome. And then you might be the type of person that might be more aligned with like giving directions, providing guidance, giving oversight, monitoring and managing, explaining things, helping people to really understand not just what you're saying, but also give them the opportunity to hear and actually watch and observe what you're doing as well. All of these represent different types of disc personalities and behavioral styles. And it's really good for all of us to know how we fit in so that we can be our best in any given situation and any given circumstance. Here's an example of someone. Now, this is definitely single-minded, independent worker, individual. This reminds me of me as well, a note taker. And even though we have transitioned to using technology as the ultimate goal, and we're all there, but at different levels. Some of us still like to write things down in our notebook and in our notepad or in our manual calendar. And that's me as well. So this is a vivid example of how I move in my space because I still write things down. That's what works for me. And so that might be your disc style as well. The bottom line is that when we're done with this masterclass, for you to really understand you and to be very self aware as we go forward. And so the key here is don't put anyone in a box because we're all different. We have different styles of managing conflict. We have different styles in terms of our personality, our behavior, the way that we lead. We have different levels of education. We have different years of experience. We come from different backgrounds and cultures. We grew up or lived in different geographical regions of the country. And so don't put anyone in a box. That's it. Have the chance to get to know them through communication, dialogue, and conversation. It'll take us all a very, very long way. These are columns that you can find in some of the older buildings, some of the museums, some of the different places that you might go to witness. And even as you look at these different columns, if you pay close attention, each one has a slightly different design. They're made out of the same type of material, and they are there for the same purpose in terms of the structural architect of the particular building, but they all have a different way of communicating their existence because they have a slightly different pattern throughout each of these different columns. And how we go about seeing them and viewing them and recognizing their importance is also how we go about seeing other people and how they add value and their significance and their importance as well. So let's go through some history here of the disc. The origin of human behavior studies. It's always good to have a history lesson as we go through these master classes that will bring us current and helping us with our understanding. Now remember, embedded into the resources section here of this master class, we have a lot of different resources for you. Be sure to go in and take a look at these and pull these out. And every now and again, like I said earlier, you can pause and you can stop as your opportunity just to reflect and do a self-assessment. Over on the left, admittedly, I can't pronounce his name, but this takes you back to the origin of human behavior studies all the way up to Hippocrates. And as we start to study human behavior, these two gentlemen are given credit going back thousands of years with starting the process of understanding how we think, what makes us tick, what motivates us, what demotivates us, etc. Carl Jung, if you happen to remember, created the Myers-Briggs. The Myers-Briggs is built pretty much on what we call personality indicator types, Myers-Briggs. And it helped us in terms of human behavior to understand thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuition. I took the Myers-Briggs assessment twice, um, 7 years apart, and both times my assessment came back ISTJ. ISTJ. And it really helped me to not only understand my Myers Briggs personality indicator type, but also to confirm it because I am a thinker and I am a feeler and I am a sensor as well. And I do have pretty good intuition. So it was able to confirm what I already knew. And then coming forward, William Marston now helps us with the human behavioral style by coming up with the disc. And the disc is dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance in terms of just better understanding how you and I operate and how we can best fit into a team and an organization and operate in the company of others. So these four gentlemen throughout the history of this nation have helped us to understand at a much better level the human behavioral aspects in terms of individuals, in terms of teams, and in terms of organizations as well. And so that leads us then to what exactly shapes our personality. And it's based on these three things, these three areas right here. Heredity, so that ties back to family, of course. The environment that we find ourselves in, because if the environment is really, really outwardly, then you'll find that generally speaking, that person has an outgoing personality. If it's more reclusive and inward, that person tends to have more of a close relationship with self and not so much with others. And then the role models is the third area in terms of the different types of people in our lives, short term and long term, that kind of help to shape us. So, family, as you can see just above heredity, you'll see the DNA. You'll see that we have the environment that we're in, the young lady looking across the pond over into the wooded area in the fall season because you see the leaves have changed. And then the role models in our lives, in this case, you see on the left hand side, mother and daughter. And these all shape our personality. So you have dominant, and you have influencing, and you have compliant, and you have steady. And as you remember just a few slides ago, these different representations kind of give us an idea of the space that we move in and the space that others move in as well. And it's really going to be helpful. This masterclass is really helpful in terms of helping us to be able to navigate the roads in terms of being able to get things done through others. Now, we've all been in this situation before, so imagine yourself in a building, whether you're going to work or maybe you're going to the doctor's office or to the dentist, or you might be on vacation and you're going into the hotel elevator and the door just opened and what's going through your mind? Well, two things are going through your mind. Number one is you really, really, really hope that that elevator is empty and nobody else is going to get on there but you. And you're going to have the opportunity to go however high or however low that you want to go on that elevator, and it's just you. You don't have to be in the company of other people. Or you're thinking, I want to get on here with some people because I have that outgoing personality and I want the opportunity to have a conversation with people. I want to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I want to ask them how they're doing, how their families are doing, how's the day going. And you want to be around other people. You don't want to ride it by yourself. So one of those two things are going on in your mind. And interestingly enough, what generally happens is one or the other happens. You end up in that elevator on your own, or as you can see on the right hand side, you're now in the elevator with another person or perhaps other people engaging in conversations. That has a lot to do with your behavioral style and your personality indicator. And when we go through this masterclass, you'll be able to understand the why and get the understanding behind, in part, we think the way that we think. So, you might be this type of person, because this is exactly how I am, where I'm writing out detailed notes, constantly reminding myself of things I have to do. This is my checklist. And many of you might be in the same boat, doing the exact same thing. So, it's not unusual that when you're going on vacation or you're just driving across the country landscape, that you might have to actually remind yourself of these different items. And that's okay. That's an indicator that you are a particular behavioral style that we'll have a chance to get into. This might be you here. You're the life of the party. You're riding with your friends in that convertible. You're letting it all go. You're letting it all hang out. You're just having a good old time. And that's probably a behavioral style of somebody that you know, and it might even be you as well. That's the type of person that's just looking to have fun, to be the life of the party, and to be that person to say, listen, there's going to be a smile on my face at all times. I am happy to be here. You might be that type of person that's just focused on details, making sure every T is crossed, every I is dotted, and you have the gift of being able to influence other people as well. And they're listening to you, and they're watching you, and they're following your every step. That might be you who's gifted in that particular area. And we're going to get more into that as well. And very comfortable in a group setting. In this case, there are 8 people that you see in this image, professional men and women. And the person there in front of that laptop has the attention of everyone else. Something very informative is going on, something very educational is going on, and perhaps that's you being that person out front leading the others. And then here's another image again, even though you have your electronic calendar there in your left hand, like many of us do, we still have a need to write it down in our notepad, in pencil, or in pen, or in our notebook as well. Even though we might have the information electronically, it just gives us more comfort to have it written down manually so we can actually pick something up and read through it. That might be you or somebody else that you might know as well. So, all of these images, all of these different diagrams, and all of these visuals represent something just a little bit different about each and every one of us. And we'll have a chance to learn more about ourselves, and we'll have a chance to learn more about others as well. So, this is the Maxwell Disc Method, the personality indicators, and you're going to see as we walk through our time together that the dominant and the influencing and the compliant and the steady portion of who we are and who others are will help us tremendously as we navigate through our career progression as well as our leadership journey. At the very top, if you happen to be a DI, you are definitely in the area of being outgoing. If you're more in the area of CS, then you're a little bit more reserved. Not that you don't want to be bothered by people or be in the company of people, but you're much more reserved. That's who I am. Again, CSI, I'm a practitioner. So I am definitely more reserved than I am outgoing. I've always been that way. If you're in the area of DC, then you are much more task oriented. And if you find yourself in the area of IS, you are more people oriented. So let's spend some time here and dive a little bit deeper. Let's unpack the direction that we're going. And remember, at any time, you can stop, you can pause, you can go back to previous slides. You are in total control. I will walk you through all of the content and all of the curriculum, and you can take as much time as you like. That's the beauty of a master class. You can take as much time as you like to go through all of what we will cover together. So, imagine when you were just learning how to drive, right? And some of the challenges that it presented because it took some time to get comfortable. It took some time to sort of understand the rules of the road. And it took some time to make sure that you were going the speed limit. All of these different things were going through your mind at the same time. And it was a very interesting process. And then after you earned the right to have your driver's license and you were free to drive without being supervised, over time, the process became easier and easier and easier. Well, so it is with our behavioral style and our personality indicator. Once we know it, then we can walk in it and we can be functional in it. And it makes a big difference to know self. Just being self aware is half the battle in everything that we do in our personal lives as well as our professional lives as well. So let's take a look at the D first, and then we'll look at the I and the S and the C. So here are some key characteristics and attributes and mannerisms that are associated with the D. Only 3%, believe it or not, only 3% of our population come back with a D as their dominant personality indicator or their behavioral style. D's seek control. They are decisive, direct, and they are results oriented. Now, we do know people like that, and it may seem that the percentage should definitely be higher than 3%. But all of the data and all of the statistics, which are verifiable and validatable, shows that 3%, just 3% of the population come back with this type of a style in terms of the disc. Now, take a look at this particular image here, and you'll see that they are all in deep thought, and you'll see that the different images there in terms of what they might be thinking they might want to say have different curvatures, have different diagrams, have different shapes, right? Because they're sort of thinking about what to say next and how to say it given the environment that they're in. Very, very interesting. So they're deep in thought, and being deep in thought has a lot to do with the fact that they have to be very careful about what it is that they're going to say. And so this particular group, they're dominant, and they're just being very careful before they actually say something out of their mouths. They want to be very deliberate and intentional to make sure that even though they are decisive and even though they are dominant, they do want to make sure that they say what's right so they can continue to work along with the team. The next area here is the I. 11% of the population come back with this particular behavioral style and personality indicator. So an I is persuasive. They're also spontaneous, friendly, and spotlight. And it's speaking volumes in terms of my style because I am rather spontaneous and I am friendly. I go out of my way to present myself as friendly and approachable in every circle that I'm in. But isn't it interesting that the percentage is just a little bit higher, in this case, 11% versus 3% for the D in terms of the population that's taking the disc? And in part, it has a lot to do with the fact that these eyes are in the area of influencing, right? And you can see that with the DI, they are outgoing, and with the IS, they are people oriented. So it makes sense that this group of individuals feels very, very comfortable in this setting. And you'll see that each and every one of them have their own way of influencing each other because they are people oriented and they are outgoing as well in terms of their approach. So this represents 11% of the population. The next one is S. Now, this is by far the overwhelming majority of the population, 69%. That's almost 3 out of 4. If it was 75%, that would be 3 out of 4 fall in the area of S. They are team oriented, they follow through, there's a high degree of loyalty, and there is acceptance as well. And so a large number of people fall into this particular category. And it's really interesting how many, many people actually do follow through, and lots of people are loyal, and there's a high degree of wanting to feel accepted in this particular space. Very interesting indeed. And so here you go again. We saw this image a little bit earlier, but in this particular area, in terms of the letter here, you'll see that both the manual process of maintaining the calendar as well as the electronic way of maintaining the calendar, I guess, so we can have a double way of validating and verifying all of the key information that's taking place. And then last but not least, we have the C. The C stands for compliant. This group represents about 17% of the population, and they are indeed analytical, and they are planners, and they have a high degree of wanting to be accurate in all that we do. And again, it just kind of reminds me when we go back, I'm a CSI, a practitioner, and this is written all over me. Because my background is with the federal government, 34 years, all we do day in and day out is a level of compliancy. We are charged to be compliant with the executive orders that come out of the office of the U.S. President. And a lot of planning goes into year after year after year and having to be accurate, right? Many of the memorandums and policies and directives that we were responsible for has to be accurate before it leaves the building. And so it's not unusual that it would go through 5, 6, 7, or 8 different reviews just to make sure that the document was not perfect, but close to being perfect. And that was my world for 17 years. So now you can see that in each of these different areas that there are slightly different and various different types of behaviors and personality styles that govern each of these areas. So again, D, dominant, I, influencing, C, compliant, and S, steady, the disc. And that's what it represents, and that's what it means. And in some cases, you can see yourself, and in other cases, you can see others. But The more we are in tune with ourselves, the better we can relate to others as we go through this process. So now let's unpack it even more. So we've given you a nice overview, and now we can unpack it a little bit more. So let's take a look at the D. 3%, right? That's a pretty small number, but the D style seeks results. They're active and they are multitaskers. They are driven by authority. They will easily try to take control. They embrace any change that will help them get results. They're very comfortable responding to direct confrontation, and they do treasure loyalty. And these are folks that have that dominant behavioral style and personality indicator. But interestingly enough, their greatest fear, you'll see at the bottom, is being taken advantage of. Interesting. So they're driven by authority, but they have a fear of being taken advantage of. So these are all very key characteristics and attributes of people that have that D type in terms of their personality and their behavior. Now, here are a number of strengths that they present and that they bring to bear, whether in their personal or professional development. As you read through these, some of these probably make really, really good sense. Being bold and decisive, being strong willed, persistent. These all really make really good sense. In essence, excels in emergencies, comfortable leading, and thriving on resistance. So these are the different strengths that the D brings to bear. But there are also obstacles that are in the way, also, that can hinder the D's ability to be their most impactful. For example, they're very opinionated and they can be labeled as being inconsiderate and argumentative, right? Not very complimentary. They do not apologize. They can be insensitive, can't relax, impatient, and unforgiving. And the last bullet here is something that I want all of us to be aware of because it's so true. Because we don't always see it in ourselves, but can appear cold. So again, this masterclass is really intended to heighten our level of awareness so that we know what we're actually dealing with, and it helps us in our team and it helps us in our organization to try harder to match the right people together to get things done. Now, this is a video, and I am going to go ahead and move on to the very next slide. But when you take a look at this video, it's about 2 to 3 minutes long, and it gets into the leadership style of the CEO, the new CEO of this company called Just Scarves. And as you go through this particular masterclass, you'll have an opportunity to take a look at it, and it'll add value to this dominant style because without giving everything away, the new CEO comes in, he wants to do things one way, and then the team has a conversation with him, and thankfully he makes an adjustment and he goes on in a different direction, and that's really, really a good thing. So this video is about 2 to 3 minutes. You can take a look at it in your leisure, and then you can jot down some really, really good ideas and some good thoughts around why it's important to make sure that we are always listening, even with that dominant style, to what others might have to say.
Thank you all for sticking with it. This has been the worst quarter in the
All right. So here's the next one, and that is I. So an I seeks friendly environment, and they're always active, always on the go. So in part, you kind of see that little smile there, the gentleman there to the left, and you'll see It signals that eyes are relationship oriented. They are emotional and animated. They are great storytellers, and they are encouragers, and they do treasure great experiences with others because, in part, that's how we influence others because we take the time to get to know them. We're developing relationships with them. We encourage them. But guess what? Look at the biggest fear: rejection, loss of approval, right? Eyes have that big fear about being rejected. So we have to know that about them, and we have to understand that about them. Conversely, look at this laundry list of strengths. This is powerful. So eyes are generous and they're charismatic and they're enthusiastic and they're friendly. There's that word friendly again. They're likable, they're charming, they inspire others, and they're social and optimistic and fun. These are all strengths. So usually when you see people with these characteristics and attributes, it kind of gives you an idea that they're probably an eye, they're an influencer. But here are some things that can trip them up. They can appear phony. They can be a bit naive and disorganized. They have the tendency to not follow through and to not listen. And they can be forgetful. And sometimes they overcommit. I used to get that counseling and that mentoring from my mentors that I'm overcommitting. And that was a good lesson for me because this is me. I'm in this space called the I, right? And so here's another video here, also about 2 to 3 minutes. Now, you don't see the gentleman to her left yet, but it starts out as an adversarial relationship. Mary's here in her 10th day, and you're going to see toward the latter part of the video when Mary's going to be in her 25th day. And that's how long it's going to take from Mary's 10th day to her 25th day for her and the gentleman that's sitting to the left that you'll see in the video, for them to click, for them to get along, for them to find common ground. And they're going to find out that they do have common ground, but they're not going to get there until they agree that they're going to have some communication and dialogue with each other. And so, again, this video is about 2 to 3 minutes as well. And you'll have a chance to see that. Take down some notes, jot down some things. I think you'll really enjoy it. This is really a good one, and I think you'll enjoy it. All right. So this takes us now to the S in DISC, and we found out that 69% of the population, that's quite a few people, 69% fall in this area. So we seek a team environment and we are very loyal, right? Easygoing and agreeable because we're steady. We're evenly paced. We're good listeners. We're compassionate. And we do treasure peaceful relationships. And this is me as well as a practitioner. But guess what? Our biggest fear, our greatest fear is that loss of security and, yes, confrontation. We do not like conflict. My conflict management style is avoid. I try to stay out of it. I don't like it. It makes me very uncomfortable, and I definitely avoid it. But there are a number of really good strengths, right? Good strengths for the S. We do find the easy way. We tend to be great listeners. We meditate. We're peaceful. We're routine oriented. We're supportive. We're reserved. We're stable and steady. Those two words can kind of go hand in hand. We are hard workers and we're team players as well. And being faithful. Being faithful is very, very important to the S. Takes us a very, very long way. But just like the D and just like the I, we too have obstacles, right? So the S can be a little bit too laid back, a little bit too comfortable, from time to time sarcastic, right? Resist change. Now that's something that's pretty much impactful for everybody, but for the S, it really shows up. Kind of slow to start. We have difficulty saying no, right? We have too much on our plate because we won't say no. We keep saying yes. We shut down in confrontation. So true. We tend to be skeptical, sometimes indecisive, not all the time, but sometimes, not always direct, because we don't necessarily want to hurt anyone's feelings or cause any type of disruption or confrontation. And we may not speak up. And in part, we may not speak up because, again, we're trying to avoid conflict. It just doesn't make us comfortable. And then, last but not least, in the disc, the C. And the C seeks an environment that honors both logic and facts. So the C is looking for information and data and statistics that can be verified and validated. Not third hand information, not stuff from the rumor mill, not what if, but real facts and real data, right? So the C is compliant, being conscientious, accurate, detailed oriented, and perfectionist, right? Now, being a perfectionist can sometimes lead to disappointment because no one is perfect, which means people don't do things perfectly, but it's still one of those areas that really resides in the area of the C. And the greatest fear is being criticized. Criticism is a huge, huge area that the C fears. So just be aware, just be knowledgeable as we go forward because we're learning about self and we're learning about others as well. Boatload of strengths, lots of strengths, right? The C are they're planners, data driven, they gather facts, like I said a little bit earlier, logical, orderly and organized, idealistic, can be genius prone, and they carry out the work correctly. So these are all strengths that we need to know about and need to be aware of. But as with the D and the I and the S, there's also obstacles that can be in the way also. Rigid, legalistic, analysis paralysis. So kind of overdoing analysis paralysis. Slow to start, hard to please, prefers to work alone. These are all, again, attributes and personalities and characteristics that we just need to be aware of and may not necessarily see the big picture. So we have to help to see to take off the blinders, if you would, and be able to see the bigger picture. Now, this is the last video here with the C, and this is an administrative assistant without giving you everything. This is about 2 to 3 minutes, and she's in the process of taking her report to her boss. And her boss is a C, and she's going to think based upon what she hears her saying over the phone to another person. She's going to think that the work that she just left for her was unsatisfactory. But at the end of the video, she's going to get a very, very pleasant surprise, and it will bring a smile to your face as well. So as you look at this particular video, you can write down there in your notebook and in your notepad, take some notes because it goes hand in hand with the C to help you to better understand what's on their mind and what motivates them to operate. All right, so John Maxwell, universally known as the number one leadership expert on the planet for a good number of years, reminds us that connecting increases our influence in every situation. Just being able to build bridges, get together on common ground, connecting with other people, it increases our ability to influence them because they know that we're genuine and that their best interest is at heart. And people are more apt to listen and more apt to follow because we understand connecting with people, whether it's communication or our day to day activities, giving direction, helping people with guidance. In every area of our lives, our increase in influence is a direct correlation to our ability to connect with other people. And John Maxwell teaches us that all of the time. So be careful about what you say when you speak, because people will hear exactly what you say. Your voice is going to be recorded. And whether it's in a device like this or whether it's in a conversation with a group of people, they will hear you, and they will also be able to pick up on your tone as well. So the manner in which you say it, in addition to what you say. So always be careful, because that's what helps us to connect and also helps us to be able to influence others regardless of our disc personality indicator or our behavioral style. Makes a big difference. So whether we're in a group of individuals and you see people that are engaged and they seem to be having healthy conversations, and we're in the team dynamics and things are going well and messages are being communicated, projects are being completed, initiatives are being accepted, just always be mindful of your particular disc style, because even in the midst of these men and women who are having conversations with each other, there's a multitude of disc styles that are at work. Some people are very comfortable in this environment, being in the company of other people. Believe it or not, some probably are not. They probably prefer to work individually and independently, and there's a combination of everybody in between. Some people are dominant, some are influencers, some are steady as she goes, and others are compliant, which means that some are outgoing, some are people oriented, some are reserved, and others are task oriented. All together right here in this particular image with this team within this organization. And so this graphic reminds us that even though we're all collectively together moving forward toward the same desired outcome, how we get there is much different based upon our disc style. And so being able to connect again, this was way back long time ago before the telephone was actually invented. But when you're sending that message to the next person or to your team or various people in your organization, what we're trying to do is make sure that the message that's being sent is actually going to be received by the others on the other end. And so, how you go about communicating with a D, just be brief, be direct, and be to the point, and then get out of Dodge. They don't need a whole lot of additional information. Ask what and not how. All right, focus on the results, because they are desired outcome related people. Don't ramble on and discuss a problem and its effects on the outcomes, because they're looking at the outcome. So that's the best way to communicate with a D. The best way to communicate with an I is don't do all the talking. Remember, the I, they're the influencers. So don't ignore their good ideas, and do allow time for some socializing, because they want to incorporate that into what they're doing. Follow up with the details in writing just to confirm that you understood everything that has been communicated. And, four short 10-minute discussions are better than one 40-minute long discussion, right? And so knowing how to effectively deal with and communicate with these different styles is a difference maker. Now, for the S, it's important to create a friendly tone for the discussion. Very important, right? Show interest in them as a person, because they're steady. Don't be overly aggressive. That makes them uncomfortable. Minimize the potential for confrontation. Don't like conflict. Don't like getting into a lot of drama. You have to understand how the S operates and how they function. Give a definition to the goal and everyone's role. And last but not least, give them time to adjust to any changes. Right? So This is how you communicate effectively with an S. And then communicating effectively with a C means that they need some details and they need facts that are verifiable and validatable, right? Be precise in your explanation, be very specific, get to the point, don't beat around the bush, and be very patient. Answer all of their questions because they like the details. They get into the details, they get into the weeds. So help them to understand every question. And that way, you'll walk away with having communicated with the C in a very good way. Absolutely. So make sure that as you communicate with the D, the I, the S, and the C, that you are efficient and effective because you understand them better. We've taken a look at their strengths, their weaknesses, and their greatest fears. And as a result, now we can build these effective relationships. Who works best with who? What strategies and principles do I need to be mindful of when I'm working with a D or an I or a S or a C? And even with my own disc personality style, which is best in terms of who I work with as I go through each of these different areas and better understand my team and better understand my organization. So here's an example of Sally. So Sally is what we call a precisionist. Sally has the C and the S as the dominant areas in the disc. Above the line, they are a C and an S, and then below the line, they are more of an I and a D. So they're compliant and they're steady. And it's very important to kind of understand. So when you understand that, then you know what to do when communicating with Sally. And you'll see these 6 bullets here in terms of making sure that we express a genuine interest in them as a person because that's what they gravitate toward. Make sure that we clearly define the goals, procedures, and their role in the overall plan. But likewise, there are some things that we shouldn't do when communicating with Sally, and that is don't be pushy, don't be confrontational, don't make any sudden changes that she wasn't aware of, and make sure that we provide the facts, right? Validatable and verifiable facts, because it's very, very important in her mind that she has all the right information so that she can solve a problem and then make a decision. And so you will also receive a copy of the sample disc that's there and is available for you in your resource area. All you have to do is just click on it and download it. It's yours. Take a look. That'll give you an idea of what the actual report looks like. And you'll see how comprehensive it is, how thorough it is, so that when you take your DISC personality indicator report, what you get back will really, really help you to better understand who you are, what makes you tick, the environment that you like, how you like to be communicated to, how you communicate. And again, it heightens your level of self so that you'll be in a position where you get the chance to work better with other people. It's a phenomenal tool. It's one of many different tools that we add to our toolbox during our career progression and our leadership journey. So the big question that we want you to take away from this masterclass is ultimately, what is your style? And how do you see yourself working most effectively with people within your sphere of influence? And again, because I know I'm a practitioner, CSI, I know how I move in my space. I know how to navigate when working with other people. I know the things that are strengths for me and areas that are obstacles for me and my biggest fear. And it all comes by knowing and understanding the DISC method and how I can apply it to the work that I currently do in both my personal and my professional journey. So, again, when you go back and take a look in your resource area, you'll find a copy of this document. I have provided this for you. Gives you an opportunity to take a look at these different patterns up close and personal, where it's a little bit more difficult. But then when you step back a little bit, you'll get a chance to see exactly what those different patterns mean. They mean different things to different people. You'll have a better understanding of the D and the I and the C and the S as you navigate your road towards your desired outcomes, towards your dreams, your goals, and your aspirations. Very, very helpful along the journey. And again, just in closing, that's a little bit more about me. The CSI found out that I am a practitioner. I am compliant, I am steady, and I am an influencer. But in that order, I'm more compliant. I go along to get along. I'm then more steady, steady as she goes, pretty even keeled, even mannered. And then I use my influence as I go forward. So there you have it. There's the website, thejohnsonleadershipgroup.com. And if there's anything at all that I can do to help and to support you and anything that you're doing going forward, please do not hesitate to reach out to me directly at thejohnsonleadershipgroup.com. I hope that this particular masterclass has been very helpful for you in terms of your journey going forward. I wish you all the best in your career progression and your leadership journey as you learn a little bit more about the DISC. Again, 3 videos, lots of graphics and images that I provided there for you so that you can feel free to ask questions. There's a lot of information there in terms of the flyer in the event that you know individuals that want to take the course or that have a desire to take the report and the self-assessment. The number sheet is there for you as well, and you have a separate PowerPoint there for your icebreakers, all there in your resource section. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you and for taking the investment in your time and in your energy to take hold in this particular course. My name is Kevin Wayne Johnson. Again, I thank you so much. All the best to you and yours as you go through your journey, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see you again. All right, farewell. Take care.